Hi, and welcome to Better Boating in Connecticut. Today we are at Marine District headquarters on this nice sunny fall day. And before we get started in today's episode about winterizing your boat, I want to introduce my guests today, Eleanor Mariani and Yolanda Cooley. And before I pass the mic over to you ladies, I just want to let everyone know that recently Eleanor has retired from state service. She was our boating director as well as our boating law administrator. She was with the state for a few years. And, we just want to say thank you so much for everything you've done for the boating community, for your staff. We love you. We miss you. Are you enjoying retirement?
So far, so good. Yeah. Thank you.
I still think you're going to come back from vacation, so I'm still waiting for you to come back. But
I feel like I'm still on vacation.
All right. So thank you again for all of your years that you put in with the state, and for everything that you've done. You've definitely been a leader for boaters and everyone around here. So
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So now I'm going to turn it over to Yolanda and Eleanor to help you with some tips on how to winterize your boat. So take it away, ladies.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Eleanor, for coming back and co-hosting this show with me. The last time we were out here was right before we launched our boats, and we were talking about spring tune-ups and what to do about launching, and here we are. It's a little bit cooler, but we still have a beautiful day. So just to go over a couple of points on what we'd like you to see you do or recommend that you do before you put your boat away for the season is one, some people are going to keep their boat in the water year round, or they're going to haul it out. So we'll first address hauling your boat. And if you have a trailer, that's going to be the easiest way to remove your boat. So remove your boat with your trailer and make sure that you remove the drain plug as well. And then we recommend that you pressure wash the bottom, the props, any shafts or rudders or trim tabs that you may have. That won't be in a trailer boat, but that will be with more fixed running gear. However, we have a little bit of a caution for you when you go to pressure wash your boat, and that's the concern about aquatic invasive species, and I'll let Eleanor talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're on an inland body of water and you had your boat there and you may have gotten aquatic invasives, you want to make sure that when you haul the boat out and you go to pressure wash, that you really removed the boat from any water source where that water could drain back in. If there's live zebra mussels, you really want to make sure that they are not going to be getting into the water body that may be nearby you and may not have zebra mussels. So that's just one consideration, as well as even larval forms of it. So just take that care to wash your boat away from any water sources.
And that goes for when you go to clean all your through holes and strainers too. You want to check for aquatic invasive species in there as well. Also, just as we all know that Connecticut gets cold in the winter, the temperatures are below freezing, so any water aboard a boat really needs to be drained because all that expanding water will, crack an engine block, it'll damage your fiberglass, it'll split hoses. So it's really important to remove all the water from your boat. And one other point, don't rely on those electric the space heaters, because the power goes out here in a big storm in Connecticut, and then if you failed to winterize because you were relying on that electric heater, we don't want you to have a cracked block because you didn't properly winterize. So don't rely on those portable electric heaters.
Maybe I'll mention a little something about trailers. So when you get your trailer home, if you decide that you're going to leave your boat on the trailer, one thing that you want to do, or a lot of people recommend, is to put the trailer up on blocks so that you're taking the pressure off of the tires. That will give the tires a much better wear in the future and take the strain off of it. So people will use a little jack stand to crank it up a little bit and just get those tires off the ground, and that's a good thing for the trailer itself and the tires.
And then make sure that the boat is angled down so that the water drains out of the scuppers as well. Okay, so draining the water. Make sure that the seacocks are opened and you can let the water drain. You also want to do a thorough review of the hull and look for any blisters that maybe the gel coat has become damaged and that's not impermeable to water anymore. So you want to have that fixed over the winter. You don't want to be missing any fun boating days in the spring or the summer because you've had to have some patchwork done. Make sure that your batteries are fully charged, full of distilled water. Otherwise, the batteries will freeze and they won't be good anymore. You go to turn over the engine in the spring and they won't work. You'll be replacing your batteries. And you may want to consider, if the batteries are not too big, taking them off the boat and storing them inside on a pallet is what we recommend, those portable batteries. And also make sure that all the switches are turned off on board too. If you do leave the batteries on, you want to make sure that they're fully charged and nothing's draining the battery. So if you don't trailer your boat, if it's usually 26 feet or bigger, we recommend that you store your boat on jack stands or poppets, what they're called. And you want to make sure that the jack stands and poppets are placed, that they provide the best support for your boat. So we recommend that you use 3 or more stands on a boat that's on each side that's bigger than 26 feet and two per side if your boat is less than 26 feet. And you may want to check with your boat manufacturer on the blocking plan as well. They may have some specifics as to where they want you to provide support for the boat for winter storage. Always use 2 or more keel stands, which is the center of the boat, and make sure that you block it properly underneath the engines. There's a ton of weight underneath the engines there. They do have these checklists that I'm using online, and it is useful to use so that you know that you're doing everything you can to winterize and protect your boat for the winter season. Utilize a piece of plywood underneath each base of the poppet. Will help disperse the weight on the ground. We have rainstorms, so we have freezing, we have thawing, so those poppets usually do sink into the ground. So if you can place a piece of plywood underneath those stands, that will help with the integrity of the blocking system. We also recommend safety chains. Those safety chains are going to go from one side of the boat to the other, port to starboard, not bow to stern. And we also like most of the boat's weight to rest on its keel. So that's important. And Eleanor's going to talk a little bit about winterizing our engines.
Alrighty. So the first thing that I would say about winterizing the engine is this is really a place where you would like to rely on the professionals to do the work. Not only will they winterize the boat, but the engine, but they can also look to see if there's any problem areas for recommendation for fixing in the spring. And this is especially important now with the fuel-injected engines, and they've just gotten a lot more complicated. Like your car engines now have gotten more complicated with the computerized systems. A lot of that is the same with your engines. But we will go through some basic recommendations for winterizing your engine so that you can at least get that started. And the main thing that you want to do is change the oil. And the fuel filter, the oil filter rather, because those have gathered impurities throughout the year, so you want to make sure that's clean, and that also any moisture that might be in the oil could pit the components, so you want to make sure that you get that out, and have new oil to the internal parts. The other thing is if there's any water that comes in, fresh water or salt water, you are going to need to add antifreeze to those systems. And another important thing to do is replace the fuel filter. I had mentioned that before, and add fuel stabilizer. The fuel filter becomes really important now with the ethanol, the new ethanol blend of E10, because you can get this gunk that forms, and so the fuel filter becomes one of the things that really helps to get to stop that before it gets into your fuel. So you want to make sure that you have that. The other thing that's important, especially with the E10, because the E10 is able to absorb more water, so it can absorb when it absorbs the water and you're using the engine, it's not that much of a big deal because it just gets put out of the system as the engine's running. But if the engine's not running, what can happen is that water can settle out. And once that water settles out, then it ruins the gas. So you want to stabilize it, which helps somewhat for it to last throughout the season. And there's the manufacturers, when you buy the stabilizer, they're follow the recommendations on the back of the container and put it's a certain amount per how many gallons of gas or fuel you have in your boat. And one of the problems with how the water gets into the system is really if the tank is not filled a lot, you get condensation on the tank, and that water can then go into the fuel, and that's where the E10 is able to absorb more. So high recommendation is that you have at least 95% of the fuel tank filled for the season, and that will reduce the amount of moisture that can go into the system. Inboards. If you have an inboard engine, one of the things, again, you will have freshwater systems there, and you want to make sure that any freshwater system, if you're going to leave water in it, has at least 50-50 antifreeze and water. And again, the minute you're on a boat system, you really need to go to the non-toxic antifreeze, because that antifreeze is really most likely going to end up either being discharged to the ground or the water. So you need to make sure that it's potable, the potable one. And if you have a raw system, water, which your intake system for the inboards, what you're going to want to do is make sure that you either drain that system totally, which is how I've always done my inboards, is just drain it totally. Or if you're not going to drain it, you have to make sure again that you have the mixture of antifreeze and circulate it through the whole system. If you do decide that you're going to keep antifreeze in the entire system, what you need to do is make sure that you see the antifreeze as you have the engine running now. You see the antifreeze come out of the exhaust. As soon as that happens, turn the fuel off. That will start it to sputter, and then you're going to spray fogging solution into the carburetor. Also, what you need to do is you need to put fogging solution into the cylinders. And so what you would do is you take out the spark plugs, you mist that, and then put that back in and let that be coated. And you're going to check the spark plugs and replace them if necessary. And in order to do that at this point now, you're going to have to hand crank it, and engines will have the ability to do that, to hand crank, because you don't want to be, you're not going to be able to start it up again. So that would be the last thing to do for that. And now we're going to take a break, have a public service announcement, and we will be back. So please stay with us. Thanks.
We love it.
It's so much fun.
It's exciting.
Esto es vida.
Why do I have to wear a life jacket?
We wear it to be safe.
I've got mine on.
We're teaching our kids about safe boating.
Cogí un pescado así de grande.
We all love this life.
Wear it and love the life. This message brought to you by the National Safe Boating Council.
Okay, we're back. I just wanted to touch a little bit on some of the other engine types, what you would do additionally for winterizing. So for stern drives, one of the things you would like to have done too is change the gear oil, and that way you don't have to do that in the spring. Outboard engines, again, now that a lot of them are computerized, really recommend that you have a professional do that. If it's carburetor, you can still follow the basic methods that we've given you already. But you want to make sure that you drain the gear case and add fresh lubricant. You're going to flush the engine with water, again using the muffs on the engine. And the main thing with the outboard is you want to store it in the lowest position, so don't put it in the trailering position, put it down. You want to make sure again that for all of these that your tanks are filled 95%, so that with gas, so that you're not going to have a problem in the spring. And you want to make sure that you add that stabilizer. If you have portable tanks that are easy to remove, best thing really is to remove them and store them inside after you've stabilized them. And with jet drives, again, you want to follow the manufacturer's recommendations for oil changes, oil filter, fuel filter, and stabilizing the gas. All right, and now we'll head to some ideas on water systems.
Okay, so I want to talk a bit about the freshwater systems in your boats. We want to make sure that we drain all the water out of those systems, out of the taps, out of the holding tanks, and out of the freshwater tank as well. First of all, we want to run the potable antifreeze through those systems as well. You want to dump that into the tank and make sure that all the water has been removed. And you also want to flush your toilet with plenty of fresh water. Remove the fresh water from that freshwater holding tank, and flush that water from your head into the black holding tank where your sewage goes into. And you want to use a pump out, one of our CVA pump out facilities, and there's a website on our webpage that you can go to, the nearest CVA pump out facility, and that webpage is at the bottom of the screen here, so please refer to that, and you can find out the local pump out facility. You want to make sure that you close the intake seacock for your head system, and then make sure that you pump in that non-toxic antifreeze through the head as well once you have that holding tank pumped out. A lot of people are opting to keep their boat in the water through the season. Our winters seem to be shorter. The anti-fouling paint is getting better and better, and so people are leaving their boats in the water throughout the winter. And I just wanted to give you some things to look at before you leave your boat for a couple of months and come back to it in the spring. You may find it on the bottom of the ocean if you don't check on it, and take some of these steps in securing your boat. So ensure your bilge pumps are in good working condition. Make sure that you keep your batteries charged up, or at least that your boat is plugged into shore power so that your batteries are charged up and you don't have any bilge pump failure. You want to make sure that you check your boat every few weeks, and if the marina that you're storing the boat at, or if it's outside your house, you may want to look into a bubbler system so that the ice doesn't form around your boat. Okay, and the last thing we want you to do when you're storing your boat in the water is make sure you check your dock lines and chafing gear as well. Ensure that the fenders are properly placed, and if there's space, to center your boat in the slip, so some of those winter nor'easter storms that come in, your boat's not banging up against the dock there. Before covering your boat, we recommend that you cover your boat as well. We want you to remove the electronics, wash the lines in warm soapy water, and dry them out thoroughly. We want you to remove your life jackets, bring them home, clean them, and store them in a warm, dry space too, so that they're serviceable for next year. And if you have an inflatable life jacket, we recommend that you remove the CO2 cartridge as well, and make sure that that those things are in good working condition. So you might have to make some replacement purchases over the winter if those things aren't in good condition after the season. And after doing everything, we want to ensure that you cover your boat and protect it. It extends the life of your vessel. It keeps the leaves and debris from clogging the scuppers, and which cause the boat to flood. And flooding, eventually the temperature will drop overnight and cause ice and damage to your boat, and we don't want anything to crack as a result of water in those scuppers and whatnot. Never tie the cover to a jack stand or a poppet. A big windstorm may come and pull the cover up, and then pull your poppets out from underneath your boat. The best covers are custom-made ones. They're expensive, but they come with built-in vents, and we encourage vents because that reduces mildew growth.
Let me just say one thing too about that, the mildew. So if you don't get the cover, with the vents and all that, one of the things that you want to do is make sure that you have all your doors open, because you don't want to close it up so that air can't circulate. The circulation of the air is what keeps mildew from really forming. So a lot of times people will take the mildew desiccant also that you can get anywhere, and put a few of those in strategic areas, and that will collect water so that to try to prevent the mildew. And then the other thing is you'd make sure that if you have any kind of cushions or something on your boat, just take them home, because those are the things that'll be really susceptible to mildew and could cost a lot of money to try to get that fixed.
And then there's always the option of shrink wrapping your boat. We recommend that you do use a professional if you decide to shrink wrap your boat. Make sure that you pay the extra money to have the vents installed, and installing a hatch as well, so you can get in and out of the boat, so you can go check on things in the winter is recommended. And that's really Winterizing in a nutshell. And we hope that you enjoyed the show, and we hope that we see you again. And Eleanor, good luck this winter in your retirement, and we'll see you again in the next show. Thank you for watching.